Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today, we are discussing an important topic that continues to create confusion among many Iraqi dinar followers and currency observers around the world. One of the most common questions being asked is this: when people exchange Iraqi dinars for US dollars inside the United States, where exactly do those dollars come from? Are those dollars sent directly from Iraq? Is the Iraqi government funding those exchanges? Or are those dollars already circulating within the American financial system? This is an important discussion because there are many misunderstandings surrounding how foreign currency exchanges actually work. In today's analysis, we are going to break down this process carefully, explain what a currency swap really means, and discuss why understanding the mechanics of exchange systems matters for anyone following developments related to the Iraqi dinar and Iraq's economy. The statement we are analyzing today explains that when people exchange Iraqi dinars for US dollars in the United States, the dollars do not directly come from Iraq in the form of some special funded event. Instead, the dollars come from the American financial system itself. That includes commercial banks, financial institutions, liquidity providers, the US Treasury system, and ultimately, the broader US monetary structure supported by the Federal Reserve framework. In simple terms, this process is described as a standard currency exchange transaction, rather than a separate payout event funded by the Iraqi government. This distinction is extremely important because many people mistakenly imagine that any future exchange activity involving Iraqi dinars would require Iraq to physically send enormous amounts of US currency overseas to cover those exchanges. In reality, that is generally not how modern currency markets operate. Foreign exchange systems are built around liquidity networks, banking systems, reserve balances, international settlement mechanisms, and market demand. To understand this more clearly, let us step back and look at how foreign currency exchanges normally work around the world every single day. Every time a traveler exchanges euros for dollars, dollars for Japanese yen, or British pounds for Canadian dollars, the exchange is typically handled within banking systems and foreign exchange markets. The country issuing the foreign currency is not directly shipping cash for each individual transaction. Instead, banks and financial institutions maintain reserves, balances, and access to currency liquidity through interconnected global financial systems. The same principle applies when discussing Iraqi dinars. If an individual previously purchased Iraqi dinars using US dollars, that transaction already represented a swap between two currencies. At the time of purchase, dollars left the individual's possession and dinars were received in return. If that person later exchanges those dinars back into dollars, the process simply reverses the transaction. The holder returns the dinars, and dollars are provided through the financial institution handling the exchange. This explanation removes some of the confusion surrounding the idea that Iraq itself must somehow fund every dinar exchange outside its borders. In traditional currency exchange markets, liquidity is handled through the banking and financial infrastructure already operating within the participating countries. Now, it is also important to recognize that the Iraqi dinar operates under a managed exchange rate framework overseen by the Central Bank of Iraq. Iraq's economy remains heavily connected to oil revenues, and those revenues are primarily generated in US dollars through global energy sales. Because of this, Iraq's financial relationship with the dollar is extremely significant. The country's foreign reserves, budget planning, imports, and monetary stability are all closely tied to the strength and availability of dollar reserves. Over the past several years, the Central Bank of Iraq has repeatedly emphasized monetary stability, exchange rate management, anti-money laundering controls, and banking reforms. These reforms are intended to strengthen confidence in Iraq's financial system and improve integration with international banking standards. For dinar followers, this broader economic context matters far more than rumors or unrealistic speculation. One important point investors and observers should understand is that foreign currency values are influenced by economic fundamentals. These include inflation control, central bank credibility, foreign reserve levels, political stability, oil revenue performance, international trade balances, and investor confidence. Currency. Movements are typically gradual and tied to long-term economic conditions rather than sudden overnight transformations. When discussions about currency exchanges become overly emotional or exaggerated, people sometimes lose sight of the actual mechanics of global finance. The statement we are discussing today brings the conversation back toward a more realistic understanding. It reminds audiences that exchanging currencies is fundamentally a financial transaction within existing monetary systems, not necessarily a dramatic one-time payout event. For Iraqi dinar followers, this understanding can help create more realistic expectations. Many people have heard claims suggesting that any future movement involving the dinar would automatically trigger massive international cash distributions or extraordinary emergency funding arrangements. However, professional economists and financial analysts generally view currency exchange systems as part of broader market operations managed through banks and central financial institutions. That does not mean Iraq's economy is unimportant or that currency developments should be ignored. On the contrary, Iraq remains one of the most strategically important economies in the Middle East because of its large oil reserves, geographic position, and long-term reconstruction potential. Iraq's government continues working on infrastructure projects, banking modernization, energy investment partnerships, and efforts to diversify economic activity beyond oil dependence. In recent years, Iraq has also focused on improving electronic payment systems, strengthening banking transparency, and stabilizing the exchange market. These are practical reforms aimed at improving economic efficiency and attracting international business confidence. While progress has not always been smooth, these steps reflect broader efforts to modernize the country's financial sector. For followers of the Iraqi dinar, the key issue is not simply whether people can exchange currency, but rather what underlying economic conditions support long-term monetary stability. A stronger economy generally supports a more stable currency environment. Sustainable growth, improved governance, controlled inflation, and increased investor confidence are factors that matter significantly more than rumors of sudden financial events. The statement about dollars coming from within the United States also highlights another important aspect of modern finance: liquidity management. Banks and exchange institutions typically maintain pools of available currency to facilitate customer transactions. In many cases, these exchanges occur electronically rather than through physical cash movement. Global banking systems settle balances through reserve accounts and international financial networks. This means that when someone exchanges Iraqi dinars for dollars at an authorized institution, the institution itself handles the transaction through available dollar liquidity and internal settlement processes. The transaction does not necessarily require a direct transfer of funds from Iraq at that exact moment. Instead, the broader international financial system absorbs and processes those exchanges through established mechanisms. For viewers trying to understand the practical meaning of this, think of it as similar to exchanging one commodity for another through a marketplace. The marketplace itself provides liquidity and settlement services. Participants exchange assets based on market structures already in place. Another important factor to consider is that Iraq's monetary policy decisions are ultimately controlled by Iraqi financial authorities, particularly the Central Bank of Iraq. Exchange rate policy is tied closely to economic stability objectives. Governments and central banks generally avoid abrupt or chaotic currency changes because such moves can create inflation risks, capital flight concerns, and broader economic disruption. That is why most serious economists focus on gradual reform, stability measures, and long-term development indicators rather than dramatic predictions. Iraq's economy has made progress in certain areas, but it also continues facing major challenges, including infrastructure demands, public sector pressures, regional tensions, energy market volatility, and the need for broader private sector growth. For dinar followers, understanding these realities is important because responsible financial analysis should always be grounded in economic fundamentals rather than emotional speculation. A balanced approach helps viewers make more informed decisions and avoid unrealistic expectations. Now let us talk about the psychological side of currency discussions, because this also plays a major role in public perception. Currency speculation often attracts attention because people are naturally interested in financial opportunity. However, when discussions become disconnected from economic reality, misinformation can spread quickly. Statements like the one we are analyzing today are valuable because they attempt to simplify and clarify how exchange systems actually function. The idea being emphasized is straightforward. If someone originally used dollars to acquire dinars, then exchanging dinars back into dollars is essentially reversing the process through the same financial ecosystem. The dollars already exist within the US monetary structure and banking network. This is not necessarily a special external funding operation controlled directly by Iraq. This distinction also matters because it helps separate normal banking operations from unrealistic narratives sometimes seen online. Responsible financial reporting requires careful explanation of how international finance works, especially when discussing topics that generate strong public interest. From a short-term perspective, Iraqi dinar followers will likely continue monitoring developments related to Iraq's banking reforms, oil revenues, regional economic cooperation, and central bank policy decisions. These factors influence market confidence and monetary stability over time. Exchange rate discussions will remain part of that conversation, but they should always be evaluated within the broader context of Iraq's economic strategy. In the longer term, Iraq's future economic direction will depend heavily on diversification efforts, institutional reforms, foreign investment confidence, and the country's ability to strengthen non-oil sectors. Many analysts believe Iraq has substantial long-term economic potential due to its natural resources and strategic location. However, realizing that potential requires sustained policy discipline, infrastructure development, and financial modernization. The banking sector will play a central role in that process. Modern banking systems are essential for attracting investment, facilitating trade, supporting business growth, and maintaining monetary stability. Iraq has already begun taking steps toward improving digital payment infrastructure and increasing transparency within its financial institutions. While challenges remain, these reforms are important indicators for long-term economic observers. For viewers following Iraqi dinar news, it is also important to remember that currencies are not isolated from broader geopolitical conditions. Oil prices, international trade relationships, regional security conditions, and global economic trends all influence Iraq's financial environment. The Iraqi dinar exists within a complex international system where multiple economic forces interact simultaneously. That is why responsible analysis avoids making guaranteed predictions. Financial markets are influenced by countless variables, many of which can change rapidly. Instead of focusing on unrealistic certainty, balanced analysis focuses on trends, policy developments, and measurable economic indicators. The statement about exchanging dinars for dollars essentially reinforces the idea that currency exchanges operate within structured financial systems. The process itself is not mysterious. It involves banking liquidity, currency reserves, and market-based settlement systems. Understanding this helps viewers approach Iraqi dinar discussions with greater clarity and realism. Another important point is that the value of any currency is ultimately tied to trust and economic confidence. Central banks work continuously to maintain stability because stable currencies support economic activity, trade, investment, and consumer confidence. Sudden instability can create serious economic consequences, which is why monetary authorities generally prioritize controlled and measured policy actions. For Iraq specifically, maintaining confidence in the dinar is closely connected to fiscal management, oil export revenues, and reserve stability. Iraq's foreign reserves have historically been an important tool for supporting the national currency and managing exchange market pressures. International institutions and economic observers continue monitoring these factors closely. Meanwhile, for international dinar holders, understanding the mechanics of currency exchange can help reduce confusion and unrealistic expectations. The process being described is fundamentally a standard currencies conversion process facilitated by financial institutions operating within the existing monetary framework. As discussions around the Iraqi dinar continue evolving, viewers should pay close attention to official statements from credible financial institutions, central bank reports, international economic assessments, and verified policy developments. Reliable information is always more valuable than speculation. In today's digital environment, rumors can spread extremely quickly, especially in financial topics involving currencies and investments. That is why analytical and factual reporting remains important. Responsible coverage focuses on evidence, economics, and policy rather than sensational claims. The broader takeaway from today's discussion is that foreign currency exchange systems are built on liquidity networks and financial infrastructure already operating within global markets. When dinars are exchanged for dollars in the United States, the transaction is generally handled through the American banking and monetary system rather than through a separate, direct funding event from Iraq itself. This explanation aligns more closely with how international finance normally functions. It also encourages viewers to think about the Iraqi dinar within the context of real-world economics rather than simplified narratives. At the same time, Iraq's economic future remains an important subject worth monitoring carefully. The country continues working toward financial reform, banking modernization, infrastructure development, and economic stabilization. These developments matter because long-term currency confidence is built through economic strength, institutional credibility, and sustainable growth. For dinar followers, patience and realistic expectations remain important. Financial markets rarely move according to rumors or emotional predictions. Instead, they respond to economic performance, policy decisions, and investor confidence over time. As always, it is wise for viewers to approach all financial topics responsibly, conduct independent research, and avoid making decisions based solely on speculation. Currency markets involve risks, uncertainties, and changing global conditions. Responsible analysis should always prioritize facts, context, and balance. We will continue monitoring official developments related to Iraq's economy, banking sector, oil revenues, monetary policy, and financial reforms as they evolve. Our goal is to provide balanced and factual updates that help viewers better understand the broader economic picture surrounding the Iraqi dinar. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi dinar news update. If you want more responsible and factual coverage about the Iraqi dinar, Iraq's economy, and international financial developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. And as always, please remember that this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It is not financial advice, investment advice, or a guarantee of future currency performance. Always consult qualified financial professionals before making any financial decisions.